Some of you, as our resource persons, have a lot of other engagements, but supporting us in this venture, we really appreciate that, and we are indeed grateful for your time and for the collaboration, especially Raj. You are here. Thank you so much for agreeing to be with us. And Pavitra, thank you so much. So everyone, thank you so much for supporting this learning initiative by NPTM. So I will now invite Gayatri Girish to introduce our two speakers, and we'll take it off from there. Gayatri, it's over to you.
Good morning, everyone. We are today on the second session of our ESG and energy law sector, and we have a very distinguished and esteemed speaker, Mr. Raj Niranjan sir, and we also have with us Pavitra R. So Raj Singh sir is a very accomplished speaker on energy law sector. He is, to introduce him is actually it's a privilege. If we look into his credentials, it's been an impeccable career in his energy law sector. So he is the author of Energy Law in India, and he has written extensively on electricity law in India. It's published by Universal Publications. And he has also been an advocate in Supreme Court and also an appellate tribunal of electricity. He's a founder of Dr. Gopal Energy Foundation. He's a managing partner in Trans India Law Associates. He is legal advisor to the International Solar Alliance, which is an international governmental body registered under Article 102 of the United Nations Charter. So the list is endless, and we would invite you for the session, sir, and please take over the session. In just another minute, I would also want to introduce Pavitra R. She is our own person. So she is the disciple of Dr. Sairam Bhatt, so she doesn't need much introduction. And she is presently the assistant professor in Gujarat National Law University, and she is also one of the speakers for today's session. Welcome, both of you. Raj Singh sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. And thank you, Shri Sairam Bhatt for inviting me for the session. So it's a very interesting thing. The last 5 years, I have been asking same questions to any founder or CXO level person who is meeting me from energy sector. So I'm speaking from the background. I have a bias towards energy sector because for last 25 years I have been advising energy sector and I am working in energy sector. तो वो ये आप bias हमेशा याद रखना. And तो मैं उनसे simple question पूछता था कि what do you expect from a student or a professional who is joining your company, or if you are taking his interview, what kind of expectations you have from that person? And उसमें बहुत सारे surprises मिले मुझे, और surprises ये मिले, उससे मेरे को ये पता चला कि जो founder है, so if you are founding a renewable energy company or power company, solar, wind, hydro, thermal, maybe transmission, green transmission, तो आपके मन में क्या चलता रहता है? तो पता चला कि 3 चीजें चलती हैं, 3 things. एंड उससे ये मेरे को पता चला कि उनका गोल क्या है. उनका गोल है 3 है सिर्फ. नंबर 1 इज मेक माई पावर प्रोजेक्ट बैंकेबल, फर्स्ट गोल. सेकेंड गोल इज मेक माई पावर प्रोजेक्ट रिस्क फ्री. थर्ड गोल, मेक माई पावर प्रोजेक्ट ट्रांजैक्शन रेडी. So simple words में, if you say bankable, that means if you are setting up a energy plant, maybe it may be best. Achha, see, if I say power sector, I mean 6 things. So 6 things together constitute the power sector: generation of electricity, energy storage, transmission of electricity, distribution of electricity, trading of electricity, and supply of electricity. 6 things together is the power sector. So if I am using the word power sector, you think कि ये 6 चीजों के बारे में बोल रहे हैं. When I am using the word energy sector, then you imagine I am talking about 12 things. So 12 things together constitute energy sector. It is a value chain of the energy sector. So when I am saying energy sector, you just assume land and energy fuel is the first. So Anmol is saying wonderful ki can you repeat 6 things? Okay, no worries. So Anmol, power sector की जो definition है, what is power sector if somebody says? Then you say 6 things. generation of electricity. Second is electricity storage. So generation में आपके पास है सोलर, विंड, हाइड्रो, थर्मल, न्यूक्लियर. अब कल जो बजट सेशन में न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी को बहुत ज्यादा प्रमोट करा है, 100 गीगावाट्स का टारगेट रखा है टिल 2047. ये जनरेशन हो गया. सेकेंड इज आपका स्टोरेज. सो व्हेन यू हैव जनरेटेड इलेक्ट्रिसिटी देयर आर टेक्नोलॉजीज टू स्टोर इट. तो हाइड्रोजन एनर्जी, pumped storage, it's hydro. Then BESS, battery energy storage system. Second is storage, energy, electricity storage. Third is transmission. So transmission may be within state. When a state utility is working, it is intra-state transmission. When it is between two states, it is interstate transmission. And अभी नया concept आया है, one sun, one world, one grid. So the entire world will be connected through a grid, and India has taken initiative for that connection. जिस तरह से आप जो इंटरनेट कनेक्शन है पूरे अक्रॉस अंडर सी केबल लाइंस की तरह, सेम कनेक्शन वी आर अटेम्प्टिंग कि पूरे वर्ल्ड में इलेक्ट्रिसिटी के लिए हो जाए. तो ये ट्रांसमिशन. देन वी कम टू डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. जो लास्ट माइल कनेक्टिविटी है आपकी, वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन एंटिटीज है. बहुत सारे डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन एंटिटीज हैं. Then trading of electricity. So if somebody buys electricity and sells electricity, it is trading. आप ये समझ लीजिए, it is like a property dealer. वो लिस्ट बना लेता है कि कौन कौन सी कंपनीज में एक्स्ट्रा एक्सेस कैपेसिटी है, और वो लिस्ट बना लेता है कौन कौन सी कंपनीज को पावर की जरूरत है, एंड he facilitates these transactions. He is called trader of electricity. So electricity trading. Then you go to supply of electricity. So whoever is working on electrons, सस्ते में बल्क में इलेक्ट्रॉन्स खरीदना है होलसेल मार्केट में, और रिटेल में महंगे में बेच रहा है. इट इज सप्लाई ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी. सो होप आई हैव आंसर्ड द क्वेश्चन. तो 6 चीजें टुगेदर इज द पावर सेक्टर. बट लेट अस नॉट गो टू दैट. ओके, ऑल राइट. सो these are the 3 objectives. They said, please make my power project or energy project bankable. Second objective was to make my power project, energy project risk-free. And third objective was to make my power project or energy project transaction ready. Bankable means that if I'm setting up a power project, any bank across the world should be able to fund my power project. It should be capable of funding. Second is risk-free. All the legal compliances should be complete. It should not be a surprise for me as a CEO, CXO that I receive a notice, any time of my career. Third is it should be transaction ready. So in future, today I have a small power project. In future, I want to invest in a larger power project. So I should be able to sell that power project to the third party or any entity, which law students call merger and acquisition, and there are different various names for that. These were the 3 objectives. So if an engineer or a law student is going for an interview, if he can satisfy the CXO, I can make your power project bankable, I can make your power project risk-free, I can make your power project transaction ready, you are hired. It was so simple actually. And now the question comes, sir, how can I make the power project bankable, risk-free, transaction ready? What should I study? What should I know? What should I learn that these 3 objectives are achieved for the organization? And there comes ESG. So yesterday, I understand you have deliberated on ESG. So I'm not going into the definition. But for power project, what is ESG? That I will tell you. ESG is nothing but 3 things. If you can understand these 3 things, you will make power project bankable, risk-free, and transaction ready. And what are those 3 things? If you understand law, if you understand policy, and if you understand standards, you can achieve all these 3 goals. And when you understand law, policy, standards, you will be able to make ESG report for the power company. All right, let me tell you the secret. So, when a power company approaches TILA, Trans India Law Associates is the law firm, to prepare a ESG report, what do? I will tell you the secret. I'll tell you the checklist. How to prepare a ESG report for power company. So what we do, we prepare a checklist, and there are 3 components in that. One is law, second is policies, third is standard. So can somebody say what is the definition of law? I understand all of you are law students.
Environmental.
sir. I am
Raj,
mechanical engineer.
most of them are non-law students, Raj.
Acha, okay.
Yeah.
Sir, I am from
Environmental
law.
law.
Some are, but many are from the industry and many are from the non-law sector, yeah. From the energy
No
sector.
worries, no worries. So as an engineer, what do you think what is law? You can maybe write in the chat box. Okay. For the ESG purposes, what we have done, we have defined law. It is not Austin Bentham or technicalities. It is very simple definition of law. So somebody is saying environmental law, and I have a lot of other comments also. Wonderful. That's great. Very nice. To satisfy the required government standards. So Vidyan Nanda is saying this. All right, Vidyan, wonderful. But then we, for ESG report, we have standardized the definition of law. What we have said, law means 5 things. Number 1, Constitution of India. Number 2, acts. Number 3, rules. Number 4, regulations. Number 5, notifications. So Constitution was made once. You will see when you are preparing a report, what is the impact on my company because of the constitutional provisions, and you will write in that report. And if something is required to be done in the company because of the constitutional provisions, you write it. Number 2, you identify the acts. So for example, for power sector, the major acts are Electricity Act 2003, Energy Conservation Act 2000. And there are other also environmental legislation. So what we do is, second thing, we identify what steps a company, our energy company or power company has to take, and you can replicate it to other sectors also. So I am specialist, I specialize in energy sector, so I will focus on energy sector, but you can just, this scheme of things you can take up and replicate in other sectors also. Second, we'll see acts. Third, we'll see rules. What compliances are required. Fourth, we will see regulations. Now, Ritesh ji is not satisfied with what I am saying. Ritesh is saying, and Shivam is saying, sir, is there any difference between rules and regulations? Or they are same? There is a difference. Both are different things. Rules are made only and only by the government. So if rules have to be made, it will be Government of India or your Karnataka government or Madhya Pradesh government, state government. Nobody else can make rules. Regulations are made only and only by statutory bodies. Statutory body means, simply you can understand, it is Regulatory Commission. So Karnataka Electricity Regulatory Commission or Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, they will make regulations. Fifth, so once you have listed out, fifth, you will list out notification. So for engineers, I will simplify it. Britishers have a typical problem. They follow the principle of natural justice. One of the component of principles of natural justice is that prior intimation of law. It should not be a surprise. Everybody should know what is upcoming. So what they did is, they said, prior intimation ke liye, let us do one thing. Let us publish it in 2 newspapers. One in English, and second, let us publish it in maybe vernacular or local language. And once it is done, then it is presumed and assumed that everyone knows the law.
As we got in the newspaper before Aadhaar card.
What is Aadhaar card?
For identification, individual.
No, I did not understand the question.
Sir,
Okay.
one more point. When you are saying the last 5 components we have to look, you didn't speak much about notifications. And also
Notifications. I am speaking. This is the 5th point, the notification. I am speaking about notification now. All right. So If you have to enforce any of the law, you have to notify it. Okay, and notification ka one of the best ways to publish it in 2 newspapers. So Britishers started doing it, but they faced a challenge. All the newspapers started fighting with each other. They said, please give me these advertisements and these publications of Constitution, Act, Rule, Regulation. It was a lucrative business. So Britishers said, why are we getting in this fight? Let us publish our own newspaper. So government started publishing its own newspaper. And what is that newspaper?
That's Gazette, sir.
Gazette. Gazette of India. Gazette of India and Gazette of the State is the newspaper of the government. Once any provision, Constitution, Act, Rules, Regulations, or for implementing these Constitution, Act, Rules, Regulation is published in Gazette. Now, 5th point, you have to write notifications. So 5 things, when you compare, this is the definition of law. Lekin Vikas ji, Ritesh, they are not satisfied. They are saying, sir, what about the judgments of Supreme Court? You have defined law as Constitution, Act, Rules, Regulation, Notification. For my purpose, judgments of Supreme Court, High Court, CERC, SERC are not law. They are interpretation of law. So if 2 people have difference of opinion, they go to the court, they go to the commission, they go to the appellate tribunal of electricity and plead, and then APTEL decides which view or which interpretation is better. So in my view, this is not law. And you will say, what about law-making powers of the court is very, very limited and temporary. Only Constitution provides, only in Supreme Court, not also High Court. Only Supreme Court in Article 141 of the Constitution can make temporary law, and it is guidelines. So let me, and you can ask a counter question, sir, is there any example? The answer is yes. So if there is a gap in law and in any public interest litigation or any case is presented before the Supreme Court and said कि इसमें Constitution में कुछ नहीं लिखा है, there is nothing in Act about this thing, there is nothing in rules about this thing, there is nothing in regulations about this thing, then Supreme Court will make a guidelines. Those guidelines will be law temporarily till the time the Parliament or the state legislature does not make the act. So you can ask a counter question, is there an example for that? Answer is yes, there are a lot of examples. The most famous case, so there was a public interest litigation from Rajasthan, and in that public interest litigation, it was pleaded that there is no law for the protection of women in workplace. And the Supreme Court issued famous guidelines of Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan. Once in 2013, POSH Act was made, these guidelines were null and void. So it is a temporary power. So 5 cheezein. But the Power Grid Corporation of India was not satisfied with this definition of law. Engineers, the Constitution, Act, Rules, Regulation, Notification. Why? Because Power Grid had to maintain the frequency, the blood pressure of the entire system. So, can any of the engineers tell us what is the largest machine of the world?
Lead.
And wonderful, very nice. Grid is the largest machine of the world. And जिस तरह से we have to maintain our blood pressure, similarly we have to maintain the blood pressure of the grid. So when you have to maintain the blood pressure, or you can call it frequency of the grid, you have to ask a lot of power plants to shut down or to start or to ramp down. A lot of directions have to be given. And when Power Grid, I am talking about 1995, the law has changed. But when Power Grid in 1995, 96, 97 was asking hydropower plant to ramp down or asking the thermal power plant to shut down to maintain the frequency, these power plants were not listening to him. उनका ये कहना है, if I generate more electricity, I will get more revenue. Why should I shut down my hydropower plant when a lot of water is available? So then Power Grid approached Central Electricity Regulatory Commission in 1998, and appropriate complaint was filed. When notice was issued, so engineers said, sir, we are engineers, we don't understand law. If you can compile it in one book or compile it in one document, we'll be very happy. We'll be able to comply with whatever directions are required to maintain the frequency of the grid. That one document was prepared initially by Power Grid and approved by Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. It is called Indian Electricity Grid Code. It is compilation of law. So sixth component in energy sector which you have to see is codes. So first, I have said if you have to prepare a ESG report for an energy company, there are three things you have to see: law, policy and standards. फर्स्ट कंपोनेंट इज लॉ. तो आप सिर्फ 6 चीजें देख लीजिए, आपको पूरा लॉ आपके ईएसजी सिस्टम में आ जाएगा, आपकी रिपोर्ट में आ जाएगा. अब सेकेंड, somebody was I was just seeing the comment and somebody said कि okay, so that will be covered in the second part. Second thing which you have to see is what is policy. So can somebody share what do you think about policy? आप क्या सोचते हैं? What is the meaning of policy? How do you identify the policy? So for the purpose of ESG report, I have defined law for all of you. Now you can prepare. It's goal oriented. Okay, all right, wonderful. Schemes, governance I'm reading the comments actually. Guidelines or framework, wonderful. Government chooses to do or not to do. What is the objective and how to achieve it? Wonderful, very nice. Incentives. Mayank Pandey ji bol rahe. Somebody is saying guidelines for promoting a sector. Wonderful, very nice. Cause and consequences. So जब भी मैं wonderful बोलता हूं तो ये मत समझना आप कि वो जो आंसर है वो सही है. All right. So दो words हम लोग use करते हैं. We use two words. One is wonderful and absolutely. So whenever we are in the court of law we are with the authority and the authority is communicating something which we may agree, we may not agree as a lawyer. So what we say absolutely. Absolutely ka matlab it is not yes, it is not no. It is only the meaning of absolutely is that I have heard you what you have said and I have understood what you have said. That's it. If I agree or if I disagree, it is not. So if I say absolutely, don't say कि ये correct है, sir, आपने absolutely बोला था. Secondly, when I say wonderful, that does not mean that whatever answer you are giving is correct. Wonderful का मतलब कि it is full of wonders. So I don't understand it what you are saying. Okay. So all right. So two words also we have learned. Let us come to that's all the definitions were wonderful. But for the purpose of ESG report, what we have done is we have defined policy. So we say 5 things are policy. Number 1, if government, state government and central government releases any document with the word policy, it is policy, number 1. Number 2, if the state government and central government releases any document with the word guidelines, it is also policy. Guidelines, there are alternative words for guidelines like procedure and methodology. But this also we categorize in guidelines. Third, if state government and central government releases any document with the word plan, it is also policy. So plan is also, there are alternative words for plan like program, roadmap, mission. It is all plan. Fourth, if the government, central government or state government releases any document with the word scheme, it is also policy. Fifth, if the government, central government, state government releases any document as a model law, it is also policy. So Rohit ji and Dr. Bhatt may ask a counter question. Sir, is there any difference between all these 5 words? There is a difference. So policy is released whenever the government wants to communicate why and what. What is the overarching philosophy? Second, guidelines is released whenever government wants to say how to do certain things. So it is standard operating procedure. किस तरह से करना है इसको? It is an official advice actually. Third, plan is who, where and when. Whenever government releases a plan, it is who will do it, where it will be done and when it will be done. So who will do it means whether district collector will do it, whether chief minister will do it, whether prime minister will do it. Where whether it is a district plan, it is a state plan, it is a regional plan, it is a national plan. Whether it is a monthly plan, it is an annual plan, financial year plan, it is a 5-year plan. So who, where and when is answered in plan. Fourth is scheme. If somebody wants funds, if somebody says I want government funds, just see all the schemes. Scheme means funds actually. Fifth is model laws. So if the central government wants that all the states, there should be uniformity in the laws made by the states, then it prepares model law. For the purpose of electricity sector, Forum of Regulators prepares model regulations. Based on those model regulations, all the state electricity regulatory commissions, then they prepare their own regulations. But then whatever Forum of Regulators is doing, it is policy only. It is not law. So these things, you have to see 5 things and you will understand policy. Third component, because I have only 5-10 minutes, I will just dictate you third component, which is standards. So first you will go to law and make the checklist. Then you will go to policy and make the checklist. And final checklist you will make of standards. And then you can compile your ESG report for power sector. In case of standards, जिस तरह से 5 के components law के बताए थे and policy के बताए थे, it is not like this for standards. For understanding standards, you have to go to institutions. So first institution which makes standards for the power sector is Central Electricity Authority. It is a standards making body. When you go to Central Electricity Authority website, you will see standards for everything. Whether it is metering standards, whether it is safety standards, whether it is construction standards. You have to note down whether these standards have been followed. Second authority which makes standards for the power sector is Bureau of Indian, it is BIS. So you go and for all components, you will have those standards. Third is Bureau of Energy Efficiency. So Bureau of Energy Efficiency makes conservation standards. So energy conservation ke all standards are made by Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Fourth component which you have to see, fourth institution which you have to see, it is AIS, Automotive Industry Standards. Because e-mobility is now connecting to the energy sector. And fifth, which you have to see, is Automotive Research Association of India. So these 5 standards, and these are the 5 standards which are Indian standards, but sometimes we refer to 5 international standards. I'll just name them and then wind up my topic so that you can do your own research. And international standards are made by International Standards Organization. Number 2, IEEE. 3, American National Standards Institute. 4th, IEC Standards, International Electrotechnical Standard Commission, and BS, British Standards. Why these 5 standards I have said? Because we sometimes adopt these standards in the power sector. So this is the scheme we have made for preparing ESG report for energy sector. And आप बोलोगे law policy standards में क्यों हमने focus करा है? The reason is that some of the components of power sector are monopolies. So distribution and transmission, which is visible to you, they are all monopolies and they are micro-regulated. So once you follow law policy standards and you prepare ESG report, all aspects of environment and social and entire governance is covered fully. So hope it is useful to everyone. And this workshop, you will take away something and maybe TILA ESG report का system जो हमने बनाया है, maybe it will be useful for all of you in your careers and whatever practice or work you are doing. All right. So back to you, Dr. Sairam.
Thank you, Dr. Niranjan.
Thank you, sir.
We usually, see a lot of, information, messages and updates from a group that you created. So really grateful for that because that is a great knowledge sharing platform as well. We hope we'll continue to collaborate. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise as well. It was quite insightful in understanding the background of how ESG reporting from the energy sector has to be taken forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.